Hi, action readers! You're about to read the thrilling story of 3 American astronauts trapped in space. But how did America end up exploring our galaxy in the first place? Get ready to find out! In the 1950s, Americans were fascinated by the idea of space exploration. No one had been to space yet, but that didn't stop people from imagining what or who might be out there. Kids played with flying saucer toys. They read comic books and watched TV shows about hero astronaut Flash Gordon, who landed on the planet Mongo. And Americans filled theaters to watch movies like Catwomen of the Moon and Invaders from Mars. These stories were not exactly accurate. But back then, the idea of sending people and ships into orbit was more like science fiction than reality. By the end of the 1950s, though, science had caught up to fantasy. Space exploration had become a very real possibility. And America wanted to be the first to launch a ship into outer space. But America had competition: Russia. Back then, Russia was part of the Soviet Union. America and Russia were enemies. Both countries wanted to be the most powerful nation on Earth and beyond. In 1957, Russia blasted the first spacecraft into space. A few months later, America launched its first spacecraft. The space race was on. Over the next few years, the two countries sent many ships into space. But there were no human passengers on any of these first voyages. No one knew if living creatures could survive being vaulted into orbit. At first, the US and Russia sent animals into space. But soon enough, America and Russia set a new goal: putting a human being into space. Who would do it first? Once again, Russia took the lead. In 1961, a Russian astronaut orbited Earth. Less than a month later, the US sent an American astronaut into space. Afterwards, US President John F. Kennedy raised the stakes even higher. He pledged to put the first human on the moon by the end of the decade. This time, America triumphed. In July 1969, American astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins safely traveled to the moon. On July 20th, 600 million people back on Earth tuned in to watch as Neil Armstrong's boot made its mark on the moon's sandy surface.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Americans were bursting with pride. But just a few months after that famous step, Americans began to lose interest in the space program. There was a lot to distract people at home in the late 1960s. Tens of thousands of American soldiers were fighting in the Vietnam War. Millions of people were living in poverty. And the civil rights movement was gaining strength. Now that a man had actually walked on the moon, space travel had come to seem, well, normal. That is, until April 13th, 1970. That was the day a loud explosion rocked a ship called Apollo 13, which was approaching the moon with 3 American astronauts on board.
Houston, we've had a problem.
The ship was badly damaged, and suddenly, the astronauts were trapped between Earth and the moon. All of America waited. People anxiously watched the news and gazed up into the endless starry sky, praying for their brave space pioneers to come home safely. Would they survive? Could they get back to Earth? Open your February issue of Action Magazine to find out.